Welcome back, guys. So we've been talking a lot about AtGames lately with the pending lawsuits from Bandai Namco and Walgreens and just a lot of the controversies. And today we do have a follow-up video for you with some new information, some insight into some things that are going on. And this is definitely getting a little crazy. I kind of have a feeling now that the real reason behind the litigation from Bandai didn't have too much to do with the Namco flashback blast, where they sent out the review units with the arcade games and then they sold ones without. I mean, that's a legit issue. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, they could have attacked on that for a while now, right? I think it more has to do with Miss Pac-Man, and they were just like, you know what? We're going all in. Everything that we got against them, let's put it all in this lawsuit and just go balls deep and attack, right? But I really think it stemmed from this Miss Pac-Man thing, because there's a very weird history with Miss Pac-Man. We'll kind of talk about a little bit of that in a moment here, but the big news is that AtGames did put out a press release talking about how they acquired the Miss Pac-Man related rights from GCC. This is very interesting because that's exactly what Bandai thought they were doing. We're going to take a look at those court documents, specifically the stuff to do with Miss Pac-Man in a second, but let's look at this PR release, this little notification here. So just today, AtGames Cloud Holdings Limited, a leader in interactive entertainment products, I don't know about that, today announced that it has acquired all the rights of General Computer Corporation with respect to Miss Pac-Man under agreements between GCC and Bandai Namco. This is I'm going to comment on this in a minute because I find this very strange. So here we go. In 1981, they have a little history. GCC developed certain source code, characters, music, gameplay, and cartoons expressed in various media, including but not limited to read-only memory used in running the Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Baby, sold as Junior Pac-Man games. In 1983, GCC entered into an agreement with the predecessor of Bandai Namco with regards to Miss Pac-Man, which was later amended in 2008 in an agreement between Bandai Namco and the former shareholders of GCC, who had become the successors in interest to GCC after its dissolution. Essentially, it was like they started paying like a bunch of royalties to GCC at this time, Bandai did. And there's like some specific information concerning that. I believe it was mostly to do with if it was an arcade version of the game, if it had coin doors, if it took money to play the game, they got royalties from that. There's some other little side things too, like mobile games. If you downloaded the mobile version, GCC got a cut of that from Bandai Namco. So here we go. Little last information about AtGames. AtGames Cloud Holdings, their website's a leader in innovative, consumer-oriented, interactive entertainment products. Yeah, not for me, maybe for some. The company leverages the latest technology to develop and publish its best-selling classic video game products for worldwide distribution. Related links, Chiscom, which is their PR agency, and I have spoke to them today actually concerning some stuff to do with this. And unfortunately, the information that they could provide me is just pretty much acknowledging that, yes, this is true information, but they cannot speak too much more on the Miss Pac-Man related stuff due to the pending litigations. Because some of my questions had to do with the rights, the actual rights you have here with Miss Pac-Man, because Bandai was very greedy with that license. You very rarely saw Miss Pac-Man related stuff out there, not as much as Pac-Man. You go to arcades, you see all sorts of new versions of Pac-Man arcade games. You don't see Miss Pac-Man. And it seems like there's reasons behind that. They just didn't want to pay royalties for these things. They had certain exemptions, I guess you would say, where if it was like a licensed toy or certain products, certain categories of products, Bandai Namco didn't have to pay GCC anything. You know, they own the rights. But we're going to dig into that a little bit more here. On my website, I do have the original court document listed down below on this article. I did kind of comment a little bit more on the AtGames being sued for false advertising, you know, from Bandai Namco and all the other stuff that they're being sued for. But at the end of my article, I do have the court filings here. If you click on that link, boom, it'll pop up. So here we go. We're going to look at a few things here because I find this very interesting and odd. that this lawsuit is essentially saying like, hey, not just the Namco Blast products being misrepresented, false advertising, all that good stuff, but the Miss Pac-Man stuff is really relevant in this. And we didn't, my experience was more so to do with the Namco Blast units. So I believe that's why I focused more on that in my first video. But like I said earlier, I really think all of this is because of Miss Pac-Man, that they just said, you know what, we're going in deep on this. So they do have some history here. We've already covered a lot of this stuff, but this is the Miss Pac-Man stuff right here. And this is why I question, like, if AtGames wanted to have a decent relationship with Bandai Namco, why would they go under the radar behind their backs to acquire this license when you still would have to work with Bandai Namco in order to capitalize on that, right? Because the argument here is that AtGames said, no, we're not going after this license, Bandai Namco, don't worry about it. Because Bandai was trying to resolve this with GCC and reacquire full rights. That way they don't have to deal with anybody, no royalties and all that stuff. So Bandai was trying to purchase this themselves. I mean, it's crazy, right? Miss Pac-Man, like I said, there's a lot of history behind that. Maybe I'll have an article posted a little later talking more about that. But it's definitely an interesting history. But let's go over this here, because this does go over some of that. The development of Miss Pac-Man and the relationship between GCC and Bandai Namco. So Bandai is informed and believes, and on basis, in or around 1981, a small group of former students from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, including but not limited to Kevin G. Coran, Douglas McRae, and John Tilko, under the entity of GCC, developed an enhancement kit for the original Pac-Man game called Crazy Otto, which later evolved into Miss Pac-Man after a bunch of craziness that went on. At that time, that's what these guys were trying to do. They were doing like mod kits for arcades because people were becoming bored with certain games. So they were trying to reinvigorate life, and they were getting in trouble for certain things. So there's a whole history behind this stuff. But let's continue. Bandai is informed and believes, and on basis, man, we just need to skip that part. GCC began discussions with the U.S. distributor of Pac-Man at the time, which was Midway and Bally Manufacturing Corporation, for the sale of Miss Pac-Man, which at that time was still titled Crazy Otto. Bandai is further informed and believes, and on that basis alleges that GCC and Midway ultimately worked together to create the Miss Pac-Man game. So Midway, they had the agreements to distribute, Namco games, that kind of thing. But GCC worked with Midway, like, hey, let's get Miss Pac-Man out there, because essentially, like, Midway was getting frustrated with Namco on getting a sequel out there, because Pac-Man was a poppin', right? And everybody wants to make their money, so they were like, shit, Namco's, dragging ass on what they do. These guys got something unique going on. You know what? Let's work with these guys. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that's pretty much what they're talking about here. Bandai believes on October 29th, 1981, GCC and Midway entered into an agreement whereby GCC assigned to Midway all right, title, and interest in and to Miss Pac-Man, including all trademarks and copyrights throughout the world, in consideration for royalty payments for the sale of Miss Pac-Man, the Midway 1981 agreement. In or around the end of 1981, Midway published Miss Pac-Man in the US. Since its release, Miss Pac-Man has been widely popular around the world. One of the greatest video games of all time. That's true. It's a damn fine arcade game, to me, better than the original Pac-Man, right? And that's what the article in this court document, Exhibit 1, was all those websites listing like the top games and all that. I didn't really dig into that the first time, but that's the reason why they posted that in this document. Bandai is informed and believes shortly after its release, a dispute arose between GCC and Midway relating to the manufacture and sale of Miss Pac-Man and the Midway 1981 agreement, among other matters that resulted in litigation. Bandai is further informed and believes on that basis that both parties settled the dispute to a settlement agreement as of October 5th, 83, the 83 agreement. Around that time, GCC entered into agreement with Namco Limited and Namco America, collectively as Namco, effective as of October 14th, 1983, the Namco 83 agreement, relating to the Midway 1983 agreement and assigning all rights it still had in and to Miss Pac-Man to Namco. Right? So things go on, and then, years later, there was things that were redone. with like we already spoke about earlier, where Namco had to pay royalties to GCC and all that kind of stuff. So there was another agreement around 2008. So it states here in August 2018, Bandai and the successors in interest to GCC began negotiating an arrangement to finally resolve the relationship created under the 83 agreement and the subsequent agreement entered into or around 2008, the GCC agreements with respect to Miss Pac-Man. Like I said, the 2008 agreements were more to do with them getting paid royalties, right? So over the course of the year until late 2019, August 2019, Bandai and the GCC successors continued to engage in active discussions relating to the agreements, the GCC agreements in Miss Pac-Man. In late August 2019, just, hop, skip behind you in the past, right? The relevant parties were close to reaching an agreement as to terms, and a formal written agreement was circulated and signed by most, if not all, of the GCC successors. As a result of AtGames' conduct, as set forth in Infra, the negotiated agreement between Bandai Namco and the GCC successors to fully and finally resolve the issues addressed in the GCC agreements and the terms the parties had already assigned to was not consummated. So that is crazy. So AtGames went behind their back, worked on all this stuff to get that GCC original agreement, the agreement they had signed and discussed, or whatever the heck they did back in 2008, and everything that was tied to that. So then AtGames took that over when Bandai was essentially trying to get everything resolved for themselves and to cut everybody out. They own Miss Pac-Man. They get to not worry about paying royalties or working with anybody. They can license it out as they see fit. AtGames swooped in, told them, no, we're not doing this. We're not impeding on what you're working on. We have a great relationship working with you guys. And they signed the contract. They made a deal with GCC, which just seems crazy, man. Money talks, I guess, right? They took that agreement, and now Bandai is pissed. Namco is pissed. They've been pissed plenty of times in the past, but they are extremely pissed right now. And does that make sense? Like, sure, it sounds great to own a property that is world famous, that everybody in the world knows Miss Pac-Man for reals, right? It's a well-known franchise, the Pac-Man franchise, and to own a piece of that, an extremely popular piece of that, or own some kind of rights associated with that would seem huge. But if you still have to deal with Bandai Namco for licensing to put out products, that doesn't make any sense to be going under, behind their back and screwing them over, right? Collectively, they have to agree, from my understanding, because the 2008 agreement, from my research, and I'm not saying I'm 100% correct with all my assessments here, but from everything I've looked into, it was just more so that Bandai Namco would pay royalties for very specific categories of products to GCC. So now that would be AtGames instead of GCC, that Bandai Namco would have to pay them royalties. So what happens with that is just Bandai Namco does not approve anything to do with Miss Pac-Man. That's what they were already kind of doing to begin with. So if that's still the same agreement, which doesn't seem like that was amended anywhere, like if GCC had an agreement with AtGames, or not AtGames, with Namco, and then AtGames takes over that contract, those two parties can't amend that contract without Bandai Namco, agreeing upon whatever terms. So whatever GCC had agreed to with Bandai Namco, that has transferred to AtGames. So whatever those specifics are, that's exactly what's taking place now. I had spoke to the head of PR for AtGames, and simply asked him, one of my questions was like, hey, so with your guys' acquisition of these Miss Pac-Man related rights, do you guys still need Bandai Namco's approval or to work with them in order to release anything due to, with Miss Pac-Man involved in it? And he said that he cannot comment on that because of the pending litigation. So I didn't get a definitive answer from that. But from my research, the things that I've looked at, it seems like that's still going to be the case. So as you can see here, currently pursuant to agreements with BNE or Bandai, has exclusive rights in and to the Miss Pac-Man property. Bandai is exclusively authorized to, among other things, grant sub-licenses to third parties to use Miss Pac-Man. So just licensing out the property in connection with the development, manufacture, distribution, sale, advertising, promotion of a wide variety of products, which they do. But like I said, they don't do a lot of things with Miss Pac-Man versus Pac-Man. They kind of hold that back, right? And they're just talking about different things: toys, card games, merchandise, amusement prizes, which they do. And most of the time I go to the arcade and they have like Pac-Man related prizes. They don't have Miss Pac-Man though. They have Pac-Man and the ghosts. I don't know. Maybe they do somewhere, but I haven't seen them. But there we go. Bandai Miss Pac-Man licensed products within at least North America, Central America, and South America. Bandai and its affiliates and predecessors in interest, including but not limited to Bandai, have exclusively used the mark Miss Pac-Man and other related marks in connection with their various goods and services. An extended period of time and over a lengthy and extended period of time, thereby have acquired valuable rights and goodwill and to such marks. And then they just list the trademarks that they own concerning Miss Pac-Man. So they do have those trademarks. I know that's listed down here as well. Copyrights and trademarks and whatnot for various things that are related to Miss Pac-Man. So that's kind of crazy that AtGames would be doing this. And, you know, now they're publicly advertising that, hey, we have acquired these specific rights. You know, I received a lot of messages from people concerning this, including, like I said, the PR representative, the head of PR from AtGames emailed me personally. You know, I've spoken to this individual before. He's a good guy. You know, I'm not knocking him. You know, he always has good intentions. I've dealt with him previously with other companies he's worked with. Maybe he doesn't agree with some of the things that I say or how I approach things, but I have no ill will toward this guy. It has to do with AtGames and their shady business practices. But for everybody to be sending out notifications and AtGames specifically telling me, hey, we acquired these rights, like, you know, and having the PR personnel tell me like, hey, you know, give us the benefit of the doubt. Don't hate on us. Like, stop hating on us. I'm not hating on anyone. I'm just reporting the things that I see. Sure, I'm giving some of my opinions and thoughts from my previous experiences concerning those blast Namco flashback units that were definitely dealt with incorrectly for various reasons, and is one of the reasons this lawsuit is going through. But I just don't see, you know, AtGames sees all this news out there, a lot of people talking about this, and now it's like publicly, we got to let everybody know we acquired this. But if you still have to work with Bandai, was that a smart move? Was that a smart business move? Other companies are going to see like, holy crap. Like this is what I see happening in the end here, is that other companies are going to see the way AtGames swooped in and went behind Bandai's back and not want to work with these guys. If I was a company, I'd be like, shit, are these guys conspiring against me the whole time I'm giving them a license? I'm selling them a license to make products? I would be like, I'm not working with these guys anymore. Was that really a smart move? Maybe some of the companies they already work with are just like, you know what? We don't like Bandai. Like, screw them, go for it. And they got some, you know, brownie points for that. I don't know. But if it was a new company that they don't currently work with, I would be very hesitant to say, you know what? Let's license our stuff to these guys just because of these actions. It's very nuts. I mean, we looked through most of this the other day. Like I said, it's a 154-page document. Links in my website if you want to scrub through this. A lot of interesting information here. But man, I can never say that word. You guys know what I'm saying, no? I really liked the one of the exhibits in here, though, the document. Somebody else had brought it up too. Like, man, can I get access to that court filing? I want to look at this stuff. But what was all this? The certificate of copyright for Miss Pac-Man related stuff. They're just showing like, hey, we've got rights to this. This is our shiz. These fools ain't taking over nothing. They ain't taking over nothing here. Oh, this thing right here, character and logo style guide. I thought that was really neat. Looking through this stuff with all the logos, the different logos, Pac-Man diagrams and stuff like that. Miss Pac-Man, there we go. Really dug this stuff. I thought that was neat. I know it's not really relevant to what we're talking about. There's Pac Baby right there. Man, I want to get a tattoo of Pac Baby. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Probably not. But yeah, those are some really cool little pictures there. Look at them. Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man in a little car. Hell yeah. And there's a little size height guide. That's some cool stuff. Like I said, if you want to look through all this, visit my website, madlittlepixel.com. There's that questionable cabinet. My God. Legends Compact. And all the emails that they were talking about with Miss Pac-Man and how AtGames, like, nah, we didn't make any claims. You'll be the first one we come to. Who's this strange partner? We don't speak to anybody about this type of sensitive, confidential things. Right? What was this? Hi, PK. Thanks for the call. We did not claim to be licensed by Bandai for Miss Pac-Man products. Yet they were showing those things off, saying that they were and that they're signing this agreement. This is crazy stuff, man. So there you go. Just a little extra information. These guys, they sure did. They acquired the Miss Pac-Man related rights from GCC. See what that holds for the future, but I think it was not a smart move. In my opinion, maybe in AtGames' eyes, it was. But if you still got to deal with Bandai, Namco, which is a huge-ass company, I think you guys just screwed yourselves. There you go. Really do appreciate it. I will catch y'all next time. Bye-bye. And boom. Bye. Thumb butt.